look, I'm a big fan. My wife's a big fan, like about 50% of the country, you know. First of all, I'd like
more
to
than that.
say again.
I think we're the majority. I think it's more than 50%.
Okay. So I want to make sure my audience knows who you are and what you stand for, and most importantly, what's going on behind the scenes. Let's just start with what happened. What happened in Arizona with your run for governor? For those people that might not know.
Well, I'm just a regular mom. I have two children, and for almost 30 years, I was a broadcast journalist, and I was blessed to have a career here in Arizona that spanned 27 of those 30 years, 22 as the main news voice and news face of the Fox affiliate here. But during COVID, I decided I could no longer do that job. I felt that it had become propaganda, and I didn't want to lend my heart and soul to it. So I stepped away, and I let the people of Arizona, who'd been so gracious in letting me into their homes for all those years, I let them know why I was leaving. And an amazing thing happened. They started to reach out to me by the thousands, tens of thousands, and they asked me to run for office. I mean, initially I laughed and said, you got to be kidding me. Why would I leave the corrupt world of news and go into the even more corrupt, slimy world of politics? But I had this moment where I thought, that's maybe what God freed me up for.
Wow.
And so I decided to jump into politics. Maybe I was naive. I didn't know it was as dirty as it is, but I figured that's what our founding fathers envisioned, that regular people like you and me and everybody out there would step in and run for office and give back. And we led the most amazing movement, 525 days on the campaign trail. We led a movement of moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas and students who were tired of the status quo, tired of what's happening in Arizona and the destruction and a horror at our border. And we led an incredible movement. And I believe we won the election in a landslide. But the corrupt people who run our elections in Arizona could not have an outsider who was going to shut down the crimes at the border. And so they rigged our election. And they took the vote away from the people. And I will tell you what, the people of Arizona are furious. They're so happy that I'm fighting. We're fighting this election November 8th when they shut down election day voting. Basically 60%, 61% of voting locations, all in Republican areas, were inoperational, not working. There were 4 and 5 and 6 hour long lines. And when people showed up and got to the front of the line to vote, the tabulator machines rejected the ballots. They intentionally print the wrong image on the ballots. It's disgusting what they did to the people. And they thought me being a newbie and being a woman in politics would just walk away and say, well, we'll try next time.
Yeah.
But they truly messed with the wrong woman, because I will never back down. As long as they're trampling our sacred vote, I will never back down.
So, Kari, when people hear rigged and, it was stolen, I know for myself, the first, response for me is like, come on, how can something be, I want to believe in the system, right? And I want to believe that people are good and that, that the voting's not rigged and people are fair in business and FBI is not corrupt and all that, right? So how do those people that don't believe that that's possible, how do they start wrapping their heads around, hey, it is possible that elections can be rigged and that you can also lose your appeal or in court? Because didn't you lose recently in court
We're going to trial tomorrow. Our trial
wow.
starts tomorrow. We have a 3-day trial. Listen, I want to believe all that too. I want to believe in Santa Claus. I want to believe in the Easter Bunny.
Yeah.
But we're living in a rough and tumble world.
Yeah.
And, for starters, tell everybody to stop tuning into the fake news. They're not even covering our case. It's disgusting. The people of Arizona have been done wrong. They intentionally printed the wrong image on the ballot on Election Day, knowing that our voters were showing up on Election Day. They printed a 19-inch image rather than the 20-inch image, and that jammed the machines. 250,000 ballots were spit out. And tomorrow, we're taking the signature verification aspect to court. They didn't follow signature verification laws and rules, and they didn't truly match signatures. They let hundreds of thousands of bogus ballots be counted. I can't force everyone to sit down and stare at the evidence. There's a mountain of evidence, both 2020 and 2022. Our case has gotten further than any other case. I think we have a corrupt judicial system, unfortunately, and I don't know what the results will be. I don't know if we'll get a fair ruling, but I do know the truth.
Yeah.
I know that we won, and we won in a landslide. And I've seen the evidence. I've seen the whistleblower evidence. I can't force people to sit down and look at it. Some people don't know where to find it. They can follow along our case and go to karilake.com and see our court case, which we've got all of the documents there. It happened, and it's happening all the time. Just today in Kentucky, they have an election, and I'm getting word out of Kentucky that, oh my goodness, the machines aren't working. Oh, the e-polls are not working. They can't win on their ideas, and they don't want outsiders who haven't been handpicked by the uniparty to win. And they will do anything to stop us. They did this with President Trump in 2016 when he won.
You think he was that election was stolen as well?
No, I think 2016 they did not plan for him to win, and so many people showed up. They didn't expect him to win, and they freaked out. And then they started the Russia collusion, the P tape as they call it, and they started investigating him, saying Russia was involved, Russia, Russia, Russia. We just found out yesterday in the Durham report that it was all bogus. They dragged our country through 7 years of hell, saying there was Russia collusion, that Trump was working with the Russians. It was all a lie. It was proven yesterday. The news is complicit in that lie. And they've been, and then 2020 rolled around and they went, okay, now what do we do? And they stole that election. Joe Biden did not win 81 million votes. We got to start using our common sense here. Even if you don't look at the evidence, just use your common sense. And they're going to continue to do this unless people like me and hopefully you and the people watching stand up, put our foot down and say, hell no. We're not leaving our country in ruins for our children. I will not leave my country to my children as a communist nation. And that's where they're dragging us. That's where they're taking us. And we're going to fight in court for 3 days. I don't know what the outcome will be. It's going to be up to a judge named Peter Thompson. But I will be damned if I stop even after that. We're going to the U.S. Supreme Court, and we will get our elections turned around come hell or high water. I want every Democrat, every independent, and every Republican to go to the polls on Election Day and know that their one legal vote counts. And that at the end of the day, whoever the winner is, we can trust in the system and we have faith. And right now, 62% of voters have no faith in our elections. We can't go on that way.
So, Kari, explain to me the 19-inch and the 20-inch image, okay? I only vote, every 4 years or 2 years in some cases. But so what is the 19-inch image? When I put it in the machine kicks it if it's the wrong size. And then the second part of that is, why would just your voters get that and not the other side?
Well, 75% of the people showing up on Election Day were my voters, and they knew that. It was very obvious. The Republicans in Arizona don't trust our elections because we had such a nightmare in 2020. So knowing that, they intentionally printed the wrong image on the ballot. I don't know if I have it sitting in front of me, but imagine if you have a ballot. Let me look down here. Some of the papers I have in front of me. No, I don't have it in front of me, but imagine if you, they hand you the ballot, they print our ballots right there at the polling place on Election Day. You give them your ID.
That's the hand fill. I'm hand filling the ballot out, right?
Yeah. When you show up on Election Day, they print it out there and they find out what legislative district you're in. They print the ballot. It's called ballot on demand.
Okay.
And they printed it out. And it's really sneaky, actually, because the average person, nobody would recognize it. They have a 20-inch piece of paper because that's how big our ballot was. And normally the 20-inch ballot would be printed on that, the image, and it goes right to the edge. Well, they printed a 19-inch image. It came a little bit further in on all of the corners, but it wasn't enough for any person to think that something was going on. However, these tabulators are sensitive. They were coded to tabulate a 20-inch image. And so when people showed up on Election Day, they put their ballot into the tabulator after they voted, and it spit it out because the tabulator read it as a paper jam. And it was coded to do that. They planned on having that happen. It's absolutely horrifying that they did that. Unfortunately, our case the next 3 days is not about that. Our case the next 3 days is about signature verification, which is the only security feature that mail-in ballots have. And mail-in ballots, I think we had 1.5 million of them counted here in Arizona. and that when you sign the outside of it, you are basically signing your name, verifying that that ballot is yours. And they're required by law to match your name on file with the name on that envelope. And they're not doing that. We have 3 whistleblowers who came forward and said they're not doing it. They are pushing forward a bunch of bogus ballots that have no signatures or mismatched signatures. And we're going to prove that over the next 3 days.
So, man, it's so hard to wrap my head around, like, with technology the way it is. I mean, we're talking about artificial intelligence, the metaverse, and we can't even get the voting, like, it's shocking to me that we can't, if we're talking about a metaverse and artificial intelligence, we can't ensure that a vote is accurate.
We can. It's really simple.
Yeah.
But they don't want to. The people in control don't want to. They don't truly want us choosing our elected officials. They definitely don't want outsiders. I mean, we've got something called the Uniparty. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we've got a lot of people with an R behind their name or D behind their name. But they're really pushing for the same thing, which is they want the status quo where the political elite have all the control and the government doesn't belong to we the people. Unfortunately for them, our founders set it up a little differently. The government belongs to we the people. And President Trump came around and was an outsider. He didn't fit into that uniparty. And they said, oh my gosh, we can't have him. And I'm the same way. And we're seeing a lot of these, they call them MAGA candidates. MAGA stands for Make America Great Again. I don't know who the heck wouldn't be for that. Mm-hmm. But I'm an America First, Arizona First candidate. And I am not part of the political elite. And the corrupt political elite in Arizona said, how the hell do we stop her? She's going to do exactly what she said. She's going to secure that border, bring law and order back to our streets, reform our elections. And they don't want that. And so they'll do anything to stop people like me from winning.
And Kari, our
elections are a joke.
Yeah, does that include Republicans?
I wish I could sit here and tell you that it was the Democrats who stole the election in Maricopa County. But would you believe that the 2 men really in charge of the election are Republicans?
Yeah.
The 2 men in charge of Maricopa County elections are Republicans who happen to run a super PAC raising tens of thousands of dollars to stop election deniers. And then we found out that all of their expenditures went to stopping one person. Can you take one guess who they were trying to stop? Me.
You. Yeah.
And I'm at the top of the ballot. They're controlling the ballot. They're controlling the elections, and they're trying to stop me with every bone in their body.
Because
in the meantime, I'm running against a woman who is the Secretary of State, Katie Hobbs, who controls the elections from the state level. So I've got her. No wonder she didn't campaign. We noticed she wasn't campaigning. She didn't put out any policy. She's eating ice cream and doing zip lining while we are going crisscross across Arizona campaigning because she knew they were going to steal the election for her. And I'll tell you what, these people who tell me, don't talk about 2020 election, don't talk about 22 election, just move on. There's no moving on if we don't deal with what's wrong. I'm sure you're a family man. I'm assuming you've got children, right?
I do, yeah.
If you got a problem in your family, if you have a son or daughter who you discover is using drugs, or you've got a problem in your marriage, is the answer to moving on and getting things better just putting your head in the sand and acting like that problem doesn't exist?
Yeah, you got to confront
it. No, in order to move on, in order to continue on with success, you have to deal with the problems. And I don't think you should trust any politician who says, we got to move on, don't talk about past elections. If we don't move on, 24 is going to be stolen, and then we're going to lose our country, because we're on the verge right now. We're on the verge of a war. We got a wide open border. And one of the reasons the main reason that they had to stop me was because of my border plan. It's called Defend Arizona. And without a doubt, this border plan is the blueprint to fixing our problems at the border. It was the most aggressive, bold border plan that the country's ever seen, because we can't rely on the federal government to protect our border. Joe Biden wants it wide open. He came in on day one. Within 10 minutes of taking office, he pulled back all of the common sense border policies President Trump had put in place. And as a journalist who covered Arizona, that border had never been more secure than under President Trump. And immediately Joe Biden pulled that back, left us wide open to the drug cartels and the narco terrorists. And I said, we're not going to have that. I put together the greatest border plan where we can circumvent the federal government, go straight to the United States Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, and protect our citizens. And now we're starting to see Greg Abbott finally do it. I gave this to him a long time ago. I said, Greg, take this and do it. I gave it to Doug Ducey. And these weak politicians didn't have the courage to do it. Only now that we're being flooded with hundreds and hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants every day are they now going, well, maybe we should do something. And this is why they had to stop me, because we were going to do this.
So why do they want, or how do they benefit from an open border? It just seems like bad
cartels.
optics.
I think people think the cartels are, drug mules with backpacks walking across the border, thugs and gangsters. These cartels are international. They're businessmen who dress like you. Okay? These are people who are real businessmen. This is a multi-billion dollar business of drug smuggling, of human smuggling, of trafficking. It's corruption, and they don't want it stopped. And their best partner ever is a man named Joe Biden, who came in and opened the border up. And I've been down to that border so many times, seeing the absolute despair on the border and watching as our border patrol is used to bring people in and move people and send them all across the country. You go to our airport right now, Grant, and you walk in, within 10 minutes, you'll see a line of 40 or 50 people, illegal. They have brand new phones given to them by the United States government.
Wow.
They've got a free airline ticket wherever the heck they want to go. And they've got a court date set for 12 or 13 years from now. They're going to be in this country 12 or 13 years before their court date. Meanwhile, we've got Americans living on the street in tents. We have homeless vets being kicked out of shelters in places like New York and LA so we can make room for people who are here illegally. We're showing zero compassion for our people. We cannot withstand this much longer. We're losing our country. It's the fastest way to topple a country is to have a wide open border. And why do they want to do it? Why does Joe Biden want this? Because he's working for the globalists. He's working for the CCP. He's sending money. He's owned by Ukraine and Romania. Now we're finding out he's taken payouts from Romania. He cares about every other country but America. And we're about to lose our country. They're pushing a globalist agenda where we have no borders and we're just run by the corporate globalist out there, rather than having 190 individual countries with strong leaders who look out for their citizens and protect their culture.
So because when I see the pictures of the people coming over, they look to be well-fed, new T-shirts, like they don't look like they've been on a trek for 3 months. If I go 2 days in the camping, I'm dirty. They don't look hungry. They got charged phones. How does a guy cross 3 or 4 countries, not lose weight, hair's perfectly in place? Like they look good. They look like they were flown in, not like they walked in.
They're flown into whatever city, Mexicali. They're driven to the border. The cartels there's billboards in other countries. Do you want to go to America? Do you want to become an American citizen? Wow. You pay $9,000, $10,000, $20,000. They fly you over. They give you a wristband. They know that you're going to be processed by the U.S. government, and you're going to end up in whatever city you want to go. It's an organized operation.
So
you
this is
go
cartel.
Down there and check it out.
This is cartel moving bodies.
Cartels working with NGOs.
Yeah.
And pretty soon they're all going to have voter ID cards, and this is going to completely change our country. It's Joe Biden's on the verge of giving them asylum, and I don't think it's 5 or 6 million. I think it's more like 30 million. I don't trust the government to give us accurate head count here, but I will tell you this: We're going to win, and I will continue pushing our court case. We're not going to stop at Maricopa County. We're going to take it to the United States Supreme Court. And when we win, the people who are coming here illegally, that are being trafficked by the cartels, will be sent on a bus back to the border. We're going to give them a one-way ticket back to their country of origin, and we're going to force that country to pay for that ticket, because we will not be abused like this any longer. The mothers and the fathers of the world will not take this. Our children's future is being destroyed right before our eyes, and we need some brave people to stand up right now, see what's going on, and help us fight this.
You are so compelling, man. Listening to you is like, wow. You know, I'm telling you are unbelievable. I was at the Milken Institute 2 weeks ago, and sitting right next to me was Gavin Newsom. And,
no.
And I wanted
Gavin
to say, I didn't know what to say to him, right? So I was going to say like, oh, big fan, but I'm like, I can't say that. I'm not a liar. So I said, oh, it must be unbelievable running your state. I can't imagine that. And he happened to know who I was from my social media presence. And we started talking, and the guy was so charismatic. He was so likable. How do you do that? How do people do that in politics to become, so disingenuous? He knows he's talking to the enemy, and he's so likable.
Well, maybe he didn't know you're the enemy because you were being pretty nice to him. I would have said, why are you driving your state into the ground? Don't you care about the people of California? Arizona's taken a lot of, I call them California refugees.
Right.
And when we were on the campaign trail, they would grab me and say, please save Arizona. We already sold everything. We pulled up our roots in California. We sold everything. We came to Arizona. We can't let our state go. He's destroying California. He doesn't care about his citizens. And so he's probably thinking he was sitting next to somebody who liked him and he was safe. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how some of these people look themselves in the mirror every day. All I know is that I'm going to do what I can to help Arizona. All I care about is getting the truth out, and the people of this great state are suffering. The people of our country are suffering. And I believe that the only way out of this mess that politicians like Gavin Newsom has gotten us into, and Joe Biden, and even some of the rhinos out there, the only way out of the mess this political elite class has gotten us into is with America First policies. We saw it with President Trump. He got into office, an outsider, was being attacked immediately, all of the bogus investigations costing us millions, dividing our country, dragging us down to hell and back. And he sat there and put forth his agenda. And while he was having to fight off all of this nonsense, he got to work putting forth America First policies and putting them in action. And guess what? Things turned around. Our economy was great. Our border became secure, even though he had to fight both Republicans and Democrats to get the wall built and to put these policies in play. The only way out of the mess the political class has gotten us into is through putting America first and America First common sense policies. The fake news will call it right-wing extremism. I challenge them to look at any policy I put forth and tell me where it's extreme. Tell me where it's right-wing. I believe Democrats want the border secure. I believe Democrats don't want their children to get their hands on fentanyl. I believe Democrats want to be able to go out at night, take a stroll, walk down to have a bite at the local eatery and not have to worry about being accosted by a junkie on the street. I put forth a policy to end chronic street homelessness. I believe Democrats want to see that as well. So they're so afraid of America First because when we put America First policies in action, all of our problems start to go away and we have a great country, and they lose their power.
Kari, what chances do you give? I don't know why like everybody wouldn't find you likable, by the way. You're not pet. You don't you're very likable. The fake news media, they don't want me in office because I'm not part of that political class. And so they've had to demonize me just as they've tried to demonize Trump. And I know Trump. He's one of my favorite people because I know how much he loves this country. They've demonized him to the point where people who don't even know him, who don't even understand what's happening, hate him. It's so horrible. And
I'm a good person. I was raised to be a good person, the youngest of nine. I was raised in a big family, taught to work hard, to do the right thing, to fear God. And I am a decent, good person. And that's why I ask people, don't read the news anymore. Don't follow the news. They will lie. They will lie every second to get their outcome, which is their people in office. They don't want outsiders.
What chances do you give Donald Trump?
Oh, I think he'll be the nominee and I think he'll go on to win. Question is, where will our elections be? I mean, they'll try anything. They got the surprise when he won in 2016. They ushered in COVID to shut things down and change voting in 2020 because they were so afraid of him. They knew that his second term, he was going to clean out the corruption, like literally bleach and hose it down, get the corruption out of the swamp. And they had to stop him. They brought COVID in to change how we do elections
You think the purpose of COVID was to shut the election down?
I think a big part of it was to stop the way we do elections in 2020. They could not, they knew he was going to win in a landslide. And now, and what will they do? We saw what they did in Arizona in 2022. What will they do in 24? I mean, I think they're marching us toward war right now. It's really obvious in Ukraine.
Yep.
We're spending 170 billion. Zelensky's taking his take 400 million. He's skimming off the top. A lot of it's coming back through FTX to Democrat politicians. But see, this isn't being covered by the mainstream media, so the average person doesn't understand it. And that's why the military industrial complex is very powerful. They don't want someone like Trump in office. He's going to stop the wars, and they need the wars to survive. Who knows what they'll do in 24? They may start a war and say we can't have an election. I wouldn't put anything past these people.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. Let me ask you, could the people expect, let me just go back a second. You said journalism was nasty, and then you jump into politics. So what's wrong with you?
Well, journalism has in so many ways ceased to be journalism, and it went into the realm of propaganda, and I think it's probably been there for a long time. It just became abundantly clear to me during COVID when there was no interest in putting out another opinion. There were doctors who were saying, wait a minute, I know this line of medicine, and this is not a good idea the way we're approaching this. But we couldn't get them on the air. There was no interest by the corrupt corporate media. So I stepped away. I didn't want to be lying or even partially lying to people. And the good thing that's happened, Grant, since COVID is that people are waking up to the lies of the media. They forced this vaccine on us, and now we're seeing some of the injuries from that. And now we're seeing a whole bunch of new independent journalists cropping up, and podcasts, different networks that are not controlled by big pharma. Mm-hmm. And so in a way, it's been great because we're actually seeing some truth tellers out there, and they have a platform to tell the truth. So I see actually some hope for journalism, that out of the ashes, like a phoenix, will rise a new wave of true journalists who are seeking the truth and seeking honesty in their reporting. And they're not controlled by sponsors like Big Pharma, Lockheed Martin, et cetera.
So in seeking the truth, Kari, what are your considerations about running as a vice president?
I'm not running to be vice president.
Can you talk about those kind of things, or is that all? I mean, if we were to look behind the scenes, or is those discussions have to be had at some point, and then are you allowed to talk about them or not talk about them? I mean, what's the whole political play there?
I can talk about whatever I want, which is so awesome. That's the freedom of speech that I ask everybody to continue using, even if you get pushback. My focus is on our court case, which starts tomorrow, and on securing elections for the great, wonderful citizens, my fellow citizens here in Arizona. There's an open Senate seat not an open Senate seat, but there's a Senate race coming up in 24. I'm considering, if we don't get the results that the people deserve in Arizona, jumping into that. When it comes to vice president, that's not something you decide. I think that would be something President Trump would decide. And I don't think he would be deciding that right now. I'm sure he's looking down the line. And I know, because I talk to him quite often that he's working really hard on putting together an incredible agenda called Agenda 47 that's going to get things back on track, because right now we're off track and we're like the Titanic, ready to go down. And I love his agenda. These are policies we've never seen before that he wants to put in place. He wants to actually help young people so that they can start families and actually live the American dream. Right now, if you talk to young people in their 20s and 30s and 40s, they don't think that there's any hope they could ever own a home, even start a family. They just say it's too difficult. I can't even take care of myself. There's not enough money in my paycheck. And he's going to work to free up some of the federal land so we can build new cities, build new homes, support families, support law enforcement so that our streets are safe, and actually secure the border. His policies are the best I've ever seen. I'm super excited for that. And that's what we should be talking about. He'll figure out who his vice president should be. He's so strong, I don't think it really matters who his vice president is, but I've always said I hope he finds somebody who the media fears more than they fear him. That way, maybe they'll stop trying to take him down.
But how many times have you been asked that question about the VP role?
Oh, about 500.
Yeah, okay. Well, I had to just kind of just jump on right there.
I've never talked to the president about that.
Yeah.
I know that other people have talked to him and given their ideas of who they think he should choose, and I know some people have mentioned my name. He's only mentioned vice president once, and he was talking to me about, he saw an interview I had done many months ago during the campaign, and somebody had asked me if I was going to, what if I won? Would I leave if I was asked to be VP? And I chuckled and laughed at the reporter. I said, wow, that's really funny you're asking me that, because it was about 3 or 4 months ago, the same reporter was telling me I wasn't qualified to run for governor. And now that reporter was standing in front of me, and all of a sudden I'm so qualified that I might leave and become VP. And I said, thank you, I'm flattered, but no, I'm going to remain here in Arizona for 8 years as your governor and be your biggest nightmare. I said that to the fake news, and President Trump loved that response.
What do you say to the people of Arizona? I have an office there. We have a couple hundred employees. We're right there on Scottsdale Road in Old Town. And what do you say to the people in Arizona that are like, Kari, these people from California are going to come over here and they're going to turn this entire state blue?
Well, I'm sure there are some liberals coming over. But I tell you, I was on the campaign trail, as I said, 525 days. And some of the most passionate people about our campaign were California refugees who had pulled up all their roots and moved to Arizona, loaded up the U-Haul, moved here because of the dead-end, destructive Democrat policies. And, we can't keep Americans from moving, to our state. Just as I can choose to move to any state, you can. You can't stop another American from moving to your state. I'm less worried about the Californians moving here, and I'm much more worried about all of these people coming across our border from God knows where. We can control that. I welcome Americans who want to move to Arizona. What I don't welcome are people coming here illegally. I don't welcome the narco-terrorists trafficking human beings into our state and bringing in the most deadly drug we've ever seen and killing our young people. I don't welcome children being trafficked across the border. Those are the type of people I want to stop. I want to stop them from their illegal trafficking of human beings across our southern border.
Kari, how do some of these politicians, I wrote this thing on Twitter the other day and it got picked up and disseminated quite a bit. It was just a curious question of how does somebody that's making $180,000 a year end up being worth $30 million? When I do the math, it would take 240 years after taxes and having no expenses to actually do that. Yet it's being done all the time. So how is that happening, and what would you do to change that?
It's once again the C word, corruption. Corruption. I mean, Joe Biden has been a so-called public servant all these years. No, we know he's taken tens of millions of dollars in bribes and payouts from CCP, Ukraine, Ukrainian companies, Romania, And then we can follow what policies he put into place after he got that money. And it was anti-American policies. It was policies meant to help the people who were paying him. It's pure corruption. I will tell you this, I've gotten poorer running for office. President Trump has gotten poorer running for office. You look at his tax returns. You know, he never took a paycheck when he ran for president. He gave all that back, whether it was to veteran organizations, law enforcement organizations. You should get poorer running for office. You shouldn't get richer. And if you're getting richer, you're corrupt. And you know, that's one of the ways when we run honestly that you keep people from becoming lifers, you know, politicians for life, is they realize this isn't a job you should have for life. It's a job you should go in, serve, represent your fellow citizens, and then get out. And that's what I want to do. I always said I want to go in, be Arizona governor, turn things around, secure our border, make our streets safer, and make Arizona the greatest place to be a kid and grow up in. And then I want to get out and I want to go work on maybe my golf game. I want to hopefully have grandbabies by then and live my life. I don't want to be a politician my whole life.
Do you think the people are getting too frustrated to care anymore, or are they just getting frustrated enough to engage and fight?
I hope not. I mean, of all the people that should be frustrated, I think it would be me. And I'm still standing in the fight. And I'm actually, my feet are firmly on the ground, and I don't plan on budging an inch on this fight. And I'm asking my fellow citizens in Arizona and really across the country, don't back down right now. I know it's frustrating. I know we've watched as they botched and stole and rigged our elections in 2020, and they did it in 2022. And what they're hoping is that the good people of our country will just say, throw their hands up and say, why should I even vote? It's a futile effort. That's what they want. They want nothing more than we, the people who rose up and got involved in politics. They want us to sulk, drop our shoulders, and walk off. And we can't do that. We got to stand up strong and go out and vote, even in their rigged BS system. We got to vote like there's no tomorrow. Because really there isn't a tomorrow for America if we don't get out and vote. So we got to get in that and still vote, make it harder for them to cheat. When we showed up in droves in 2020, I'm sorry, by the way, I'm on the edge of a cold or allergies, and so I'm always about to sneeze here.
Thank God we don't have to mention COVID anymore. So remember no, 2 years ago, you'd be like, hey, I might have the 19.
So when we show up and vote like crazy and their corrupt system, look how hard they had to cheat in 2020. It was so obvious. They had to stop counting and then rig the vote at 3 a.m. We saw all the video, the government video showing them pulling out the boxes of ballots and running them through 30 times the same ballot. And we saw what they did in 2022, where they rigged election day voting. We're making it harder and harder for them to cheat. They have to expose who they are. They have to expose the criminals that they are. And it's quite humorous to watch how sick these individuals are. And that's why I'm really pushing their back against the wall. And we will continue to go after them. If they think we're backing down, they got another thing coming. The mama bear revolution is just getting started, and the mothers of the world will not back down, because we're going to save our country.
I love that. How can we support you, Kari? Like you're just so likable. I think this platform, podcast, or people doing their own interviews of you outside of the media is so compelling and powerful and warm and friendly and transparent. Like, how can a guy like me support you? I want you to do well. I can't imagine what your legal fees are costing to even fight this. Who funds that, by the way? How do you fund?
Well, we have just people around the country. Immediately, when the election happened, I immediately had to go in. I went from 525 days of giving everything I had on the campaign trail to having to pivot, pull together a legal team, and basically do a knife fight in the street. And it was intense. And I just put out a call to the people, and I said, I need help. Do you want me to push this case forward? They said, absolutely. And people have been donating to Save Arizona Fund. And the people all across America, small donations have come in. People saying, here's $25. Please don't stop fighting to secure our elections. And so that's how we're paying for it. And we're working really hard.
Is it savearizonafund.com?
Yeah, savearizonafund.com, or you can go to karilake.com and we have a little donate button. If you want to donate and help with our legal fees, that's helpful. We're going to take this to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Yeah, good. I'm going to send you some money right away to help you.
That's awesome.
And I want to encourage
tell people really quickly, not everybody can afford to donate right now. I mean, we're living in Joe Biden's economy, and it's disastrous. We've all taken a, 15% pay cut, even if you haven't had a real pay cut because it's so expensive.
Everybody can afford to do something. If they want to protect having something in the future, everybody can do a little something. So,
but I thank you, Grant, because you have a podcast and you're willing to have people on. And I made it as far as I did. We won the primary, and I believe we won in a landslide in the general. And I didn't get that from going on the mainstream media. They wouldn't have me on. I got the word out through people like you. I got the word out through small podcasts, radio shows, individuals putting out videos online on social media. And it caught fire because the people recognize when someone's being truthful. They recognize that, and they recognize the truth, and they want the truth right now. The truth isn't always going to be pleasant. We're going to find out some uncomfortable truths. We have been about our elections, about the way our government's been operating, about the way our FBI has been working against the people. Think about what they did with this Russia collusion stuff. They tore our country to shreds. They had us at each other's throats based on a big fat lie. And they sat back and perpetuated it for years while Americans were divided. And that's how the media works. They want us living in fear and divided. I want to bring people together. And we did that with our campaign. We brought independents and Democrats in. And once we realize the truth, I think we're all going to come in together and rally to rebuild our country and make it just a beacon, a shining star for the rest of the world to look at.
And look, I want to thank you for coming here. My people that follow me, I'm like, guys, I try to get liberals to come to this. I mean, we've asked Barack Obama. Trump came and did my deal, my big conference, 10X Growth Conference. But I've asked Barack to come. He was like, yeah, I'd come, but everybody has to be vaccinated with cards. I'm like, still? Come on, man.
Why you know what I say to that? Boom.
Yeah, boom-a-zooma.
Take your vaccination and shove it.
Right. Oh, my gosh, I love that.
I mean, go for it. If you want it, go for it. But don't you dare try to shove a needle in my kid's arm or my arm. I will choose it on my own. I mean, we look back at all the lies Fauci told, and I pray for justice for America for the lies that he pushed on us.
Yeah. Well, and now that you brought that up, sorry, I'm getting greedy now, but Jerome Powell and the Fed and the raising of interest rates, what would you do to change that?
Well, I think President Trump was constantly pushing back against raising interest rates, but they're trying to control the inflation, which is out of control. I mean, stolen, rigged elections have serious consequences. And we didn't stand up as a nation. They tried to shame us for speaking out and going, wait a minute, something's wrong with that election. They immediately shamed us and forced Biden into office. And when you have a feeble, weak, unintelligent person running our country like Biden, you're going to have problems. And our economy's in a tailspin, in my opinion. And they're trying to prevent inflation from going up any higher by raising the interest rate. But I mean, the way to stop that is we gotta get these people out of office who shouldn't even be in office. Get President Trump back in there and bring back his economic policies, which I think were very strong, shored up our economy. I'm most worried right now, to be honest, about people who are newly retired, nearing retirement, and they're looking down at their statement. They saved, whether it be a pension that's now on not maybe won't even survive, or their 401k or savings, and they're looking at it and watching as it dries up and shrivels up, and they're going, what am I going to do? Do I have to go back to work? Do I have to work forever? I'm really worried about those people as we enter the next year or two, until we can get another election and get somebody with competence like President Trump in office.
And that's why I had you here today. So guys, if you enjoyed this, first of all, on a popularity meter, like on a scale to 10, how much do you like Kari Lake? Because I love you even more than seeing you, on the the other platforms. So thank you so much for coming here. And KariLake.com, please, guys, go help. $10, $25, $100. I'm going to send some dough over there to help her fight to make sure this election fraud, if they can win it, they can win it. At least they should fight as you would want to fight if there was injustice done.
I'd be fighting, by the way, if our elections were run this way and my opponent's supporters were disenfranchised the way ours were. I don't want any voter disenfranchised. If what happened in Maricopa County happened in a Democrat-run city, there would be hell to pay. People would be protesting, and I wouldn't blame them one bit. We've got to have honest elections or we lose our country. I think every politician should come on your show, whatever, whether they have a D, an I, or an R behind their name. And if you can't hack sitting on a podcast, I go on podcasts, I've done 3-hour interviews where I didn't know any of the questions. If you can't handle answering any question and sitting on a podcast and exposing you're kind of there's an exposure risk, I suppose. But if you can't handle that, you shouldn't be able to sit in office and represent the people.
I asked my team before this, I said, how many questions did their team ask about what I was going to ask you? And she says, none. I said, great, this is going to be awesome. Because a lot of these guys and gals, man, they want a list. They got all these, don't go here, don't ask this. So I really appreciate you being so authentic, so transparent. I appreciate your time. And thank you so much for showing up today, even though you're not feeling 100%. You were 100%.
Oh, my gosh. I just got home from a trip. I think I told you we were gone for a month. I've been in 9 time zones.
Wow.
And I get home, and the palm trees are starting to do whatever they do every year that gives me allergies. I'm like, oh, I picked the perfect time to come home.
What would you say coming home from other countries now about America being back here? Even with all our problems.
I just was in one of the most amazing countries I've ever been in, Hungary. I was in Budapest, and I got to sit down with Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who is incredible. And you know how you know he's incredible? The media is calling him every name in the book. They're horrified by what he's done to Hungary, which is actually turn that country around, make it prosperous. He supports families. He supports marriage. He supports children. And it's the safest city I've ever walked in.
Wow.
We've got to do some quick triage here in America. We can't walk down the streets of Phoenix during the day or at night. It's dangerous. San Francisco's dangerous. Chicago, New York, D.C. We got to do some serious work here. What he's doing is putting in some very tough policy, and the people are happy. They're able to enjoy their street. Their tax money is actually going to support the things that provide quality of life. We're seeing it in El Salvador. They went from being the murder capital of the world to being the safest country in the world. They brought murders down to practically zero, and they're going tough on crime. We have to lock up the people who are committing the crimes. And right now, in any major city, I think in Phoenix, I was told by some of the folks down there, about 200 of the usual suspects are committing most of the crime. And when you have DAs and prosecutors who just throw them out of court and say, slap on the wrist, don't do it again, we'll let you plea down, no jail time, you have a never-ending Groundhog Day of crimes and violence on the streets. So we got to start getting a little tougher on the true criminals out there so that we can walk safely on our streets. But America's still the greatest country. We have a great future ahead of us if we reform our elections so that we can get the people we want in office.
I love that. Hey, thank you so much again for being here, and keep Arizona safe. We want to expand our offices there, so I have a little bias in the business that I'm trying to protect there. And we're going to do everything we can over here at 10X and Grant Cardone's ecosystem to support you.
Thank you, Grant. I appreciate it, and we'll talk again soon.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.